So today I came bearing receipts. Hey friends, welcome back to Tinyari Travels. So it's been 1 month of me living in Bali, in Jimbaran Uluwatu area, and I thought it would be very helpful to do a breakdown of how much I spent and what day-to-day life here actually looks like. I know everybody's budget looks very different, so I'm just gonna keep it real about what was affordable for me and what was worth it and what was not, and a few tips that might help you save some money if you're planning to move here or if you're planning to save some money at all. So before I moved here, we had watched so many vlogs, we had done a whole lot of research. A lot of people were saying Bali is cheap, but in 2025 I would say it all depends on how you live, because there's all levels of social classes and economic classes in Bali. So let's start with the heavy hitters. I'm talking flights and visas. So we made a really rookie mistake. I actually don't think this is a rookie mistake. I think this is a mistake you make when you trust yourself too much. So we saw a really good deal with a very nice airline, which is Singapore Airline. Pretty excited to take this, and the deal was 184 euros for a return flight, and we were so quick to get it that we bought it in reverse. So instead of buying from Singapore to Bali, we bought from Bali to Singapore, and we didn't notice until the morning of the flight. The morning of the flight, we had to book a whole different flight after we noticed what we had done. And that obviously because you're booking last minute, the flights were very expensive. On arrival, you pay for visa. So the visa was 500,000 Indonesian rupiah. So that's about 35 euros. Here's a quick tip. For Bali, most nationalities are required to have a visa on arrival. Book that online and book that prior, because the queue that you have to make to pay at the airport, long. That's gonna take you like an hour, but doing it online is so simple and easy. Just make sure I could add the link down for the right website to do that. You definitely want to do a lot of research and talk to an agent, because for the first visa that you get, it's very limited. You get the first 30 days with a guaranteed extension for a maximum of 60 days. So when these 60 days elapse and you do not have any other kind of visa, you would have to exit the country, which is called a visa run. Once you have that sorted, let's move on to the next big thing, rent. Now, I argue that rent is the biggest chunk of your budget, but I think it really depends on how you want to live. I personally took up a traditional bamboo house in Jimbaran. So on this one, we spent 340 euros, which is 6 million Indonesian rupiah per month, and 52,000 Kenya shillings. Now, we thought this was a very fair price considering the location. We were looking for somewhere that was close to the airport, and this place was about 15 minutes to the airport. In Bali, there's also guest houses from as low as $200 per month. These are usually shared spaces, and they can be a little bit complicated if you're looking for a long-term rental. There's also relatively nice villas with shared amenities such as kitchens and pools, and this can be between $500 to $600 per month, and they're pretty nice if you don't mind sharing. So evidently all categories, there's villas that also start from like $1,200 per month, and some other villas also that do only daily rates. So these are more like resort-like style. And there's people who are paying up to $10,000 per month for villas. So this is like a house, a huge house where everybody is sharing a room maybe. They're pretty luxurious and nice. So yeah, there's all sorts of levels to that. So my tip about house hunting here is, if you're already physically here in Bali, you should try to do physical visits. Facebook groups are golden. You're very likely to get very fair deals if you do that, if you check out Facebook groups, and then you can contact the realtors and then you can go see them physically. That way you're able to get a feel of the area. However, if you're not physically in Bali yet and you cannot do any physical visits, the safest options would be to check through Airbnb or any other sites that give you a safety guarantee. Because if you happen to get something that you don't like, or something that was a little bit misleading, or something was off, if you made your booking through Facebook Marketplace or any other sites that have no guarantee, then you would have a very hard time doing something about the mistake, maybe getting a refund or whatever, but you would have a very hard time doing something about it in general. Moving on to the next thing, let's talk food. So I went food shopping. So it depends on where you go food shopping. Now, in my opinion, this is where most people overspend, me included, because there's just so many options, so many good options. Obviously, because of that, here the budget swings a lot. For example, in local warungs are family-owned restaurants. Meals can range from $1 to $5. That's like 100 Kenya shillings for a really good meal, and very clean and very tasty too, maybe 200, 300 Kenya shillings. So with about $1 or $2, you're able to have a really hearty meal in a local warung. However, on the other hand, if you're frequenting Western cafes or restaurants that are mostly targeted towards a more Western touristic clientele, you know, you're indulging in smoothie bowls and seafood and all sorts of Western mixes. I'm talking pizzas, curries, Indian food, Chinese food, Spanish food. So you should expect to spend somewhere from $10, $5 a meal, all the way to about $50 a meal. So my total budget on food, this excludes all types of dinner dates and hangouts and sweet little extravagant treats. So I'm talking local warungs and a little mix of Western cafes. So here on day-to-day food, only nothing extravagant, I spent 5,250,000 Indonesian rupiah, which is 280 euros, about $300. Now the thing is, aside from that total, we did hit quite a number of beach clubs and cafes or adventure. So these are like the popular spots where they tend to have a certain minimum spend. So for example, in one beach club, I think the minimum spend was about 800,000 Indonesian rupiah, which is about 40 euros or 45 US dollars. So these kind of places tend to be extremely popular and on the higher hand when it comes to spending. So we did hit quite a number of them, I think about 4 of them, and we spent averagely about 2 million at each spot. That is about 110 US dollars. So 110 US dollars times 4, that would be about $440 in adventure and these places, the fancy beach clubs and stuff, per month. So total food budget, meaning my day-to-day food, snacks, and all that, and including dinner dates, hanging out with friends, meals with friends, and all that kind of extravagance, the total food budget came to 740 US dollars this month. So really, if you're going to be splurging on beach clubs and dinners and fancy dinners every single day, you can end up spending up to 1,000, 2,000 and open end upwards. But also with a budget of about 300 US dollars, you're still able to eat pretty good. And if you're going to be able to stick around to local and more warung-like options. But with the other fancy, more popular beach clubs, sometimes you're asked to pay to reserve, especially if you want prime spots with like day beds or like a really great sunset view, or you will have some expected minimum spend. But also there's still walk-in tables for this kind of like popular spots. These ones do not necessarily have a minimum spend, but they tend to fill up pretty early. So in Bali, you tend to have all these options. You just need to do your research and see what fits your budget. In some other really nice places also, you really don't have to pay any extra charge. You would just have to pay for your food and drinks. All right, let's talk about the next thing, transportation. So in Bali, scooters and bikes are the most popular modes of transportation. Due to the classic Bali traffic, most people opt for that option. So if you know how to ride a motorcycle or a scooter, you're at such a big advantage. So bike rentals for basic models such as Scoopys, these ones tend to go for as low as $2 to $3 or to $4 a day. However, if you want more powerful bikes like Vario 125cc or NMAX, that can average from about $6 to $8 daily. Other factors that change the price is how new the bike is and also how comfortable it is. There's plenty of trustworthy rentals. They just tend to ask you for a little bit of a deposit before, and then they always give it back to you, obviously in case you haven't had any damages or anything like that. So I personally used taxis and bikes because I don't know how to ride a bike. So approximately for the whole month, I spent about 150 US dollars that month on transportations, taxis, and bike. So yeah, if you don't know how to ride a bike, Gojek and Grab rides are pretty affordable, although they do add up with time. All right, quickly to the next thing, fitness and work. As we established earlier, Bali has everything for everyone. Has everything for everyone? Anyway, so yeah, gyms can be super affordable or super luxurious. Most average local gyms are about $30 per month, while other super duper luxurious gyms that have saunas, cold plunges, co-working spaces, private areas can range from $50 to $150 to open end per month. There's also super local gyms which are extremely affordable. This was my first gym. So I'm talking just weights. There isn't like lots of fancy things. There's barely any aircon, or such basics like Wi-Fi. So it can be pretty rustic and secondhand. But the thing about Balinese people, they're really clean, regardless of the status. Anyway, so this gym was $9 per month. Now let us juxtapose that with this gym, which is $50 per month. So at different economic capacities, you're able to have some kind of gym here in Bali. And that's the beauty about Bali. We all agree that Bali is the digital nomad hub. Hence, if you're working online and remotely, you will love the fact that most cafes, most social spaces do have very good Wi-Fi. And they're quite laptop friendly as long as you order something in these areas. In plenty of places, however, there is dedicated co-working spaces, which can go for as low as $100 to $200 per month. But in my experience, I have been using lots of cafes and even some gyms, and most of the rentals also do have very good set-aside workstations. For example, this gym that I'm currently at, it has really good Wi-Fi and very little sections where you can work from if you do not necessarily need a dedicated co-working space, and the connection is really good for you to work here. That's not all. There's also free fitness options, such as join a run club like I did. I recently joined this run club. I joined one in Kenya, and ever since, every time I move to a different place, I'm always looking for run clubs in that area. I mean, you don't have to pay anything. Obviously, they have cafes in there, so you can always grab something. You get to meet like-minded individuals, show up, sweat it out, such good energy. Yeah, so these are like really good communities that you get to, get your fitness going and cost you relatively nothing. Let's talk about some miscellaneous stuff like laundry and insurance. My 1 month insurance that I got from Kenya cost $30 a month. Toiletries and laundry. So my weekly laundry was about €5 per express session. So doing this every week, 4 times in a month, that's about €50. What? €20. All right, the next thing is shopping. Just like everything else, you have options. So you have thrift shops, which are relatively affordable, and also like all other options like premium outlets. So some of the major shopping sprees I went on was this local thrift shop. A friend called Santa that I made in Bali took me to this place. It was absolutely beautiful with some antique stuff and some actually new stuff. Here I spent 500,000 Indonesian rupiah. This is about $40. And then, we got some really pretty cute stuff. In between the month, there was buying a certain 2-piece here, buying a certain beach dress there, and all those little things. So I would total that to another 500,000 Indonesian rupiah, another $40. The other time that I spent the most on intentional shopping was H&M. So here I went to buy some gym stuff, and I spent 2 million Indonesian rupiah on about 4 pieces of clothing. Now this right here is mostly for the girls. Let's talk beauty stuff. So here's a countdown of basic grooming treatments I got and how much they cost. I did my hair. I'm talking about these little cornrows, right? Pretty basic and hanging on to dear life. That cost me 300,000. Right, my nails were 138,000 Indonesian rupiah, which I thought was a little bit friendly. Still the same nails. Lashes were 250,000 Indonesian rupiah. That includes home service. 50,000 was the home service fee. Got a wax I had my foot scrubbed. That was a total of 500,000 Indonesian. Toiletries and some feminine care, some spontaneous snacks or things like this. I would give that a total of 1,220,000 Indonesian rupiah. In this first month, I spent 34 million rupiah. That is about 2,100 US dollars. That's it for the first month in Bali. See you on the next one. Thank you for watching.